Welcome into another edition of SEC Football and Beyond. I'm Neil McCready. Chris Landry here with me today as well. It is Tuesday, January the 26th. Hope you had a great weekend. Hope you enjoyed the NFC, AFC Conference Championship games. Tampa Bay knocks off the Green Bay Packers, and the Kansas City Chiefs roll over the Buffalo Bills. So about, 12 days away from Super Bowl 55 in Tampa Bay. The Buccaneers and the Chiefs. We'll talk about that probably next week a lot. We probably won't talk about that much today at all. There's a lot of other stuff we want to get to. Alabama, Tennessee, Ole Miss, South Carolina, Auburn, Senior Bowl stuff as well. And so anyway, with that, Chris, how are you?
Doing good. It's going to be a different look for the Super Bowl as it has become, as you know, over the years, kind of a celebratory week. So in normal years, this coming Sunday, it just all the media folks would just coalesce. Not all of them, but a lot of them would. And Radio Row stuff would just be big and huge and stuff. Always never really liked the radio stuff, but it is just huge. None of that's taking place now this year. Everything, the teams are going to be coming in on the Friday before the game. So it's going to be it's going to be like the Super Bowl was in Super Bowl 1 and 2 when they didn't even call it the Super Bowl. It's just obviously in the current environments, everything's going to be done virtual, the interviews and stuff like that. So as it should be, but we have gotten through, we talked about this through the end of the college season, and I think all were more confident, at least I was, in getting through the NFL season. We're not done yet. So knock on wood, but everything, I feel confident how they organize things, that obviously every precaution is made. And yeah, so it's interesting. We've got a great storyline in Tampa. Again, it looks like there's going to be 22,000 fans allowed, Neil. And one of the things that's a good advice the league has taken, they are, and I don't know I don't know that they're giving, I believe they are giving 7,500 tickets away to health workers in the area that could go to the game. The NFL is. So that's really cool that, a lot of the people that have had such a tough year that are going to be able to go to the game. So we've got us a Super Bowl. We got us a great Chiefs team, and we got us a great story. And Tom Brady going to his 10th Super Bowl. That doubles more than anybody else. So, it's going to be an interesting week or so, and a lot going on in college. Got the Senior Bowl this week. That it's a little bit different. I'm going to have to go into a little bit of shifts, and I'm going to spend a couple of days there. So, or at least a day. We'll see how things go and how the setup is. But it's still a busy time because there's a lot going on, a lot of news around. He mentioned some around the conference. Some folks still getting hired and recruiting, kind of that second wave as we are going to finish up the second signing day the week after the Super Bowl.
Yeah, it's going to be weird. Although for Tampa, since they are there in Tampa, not reporting until Friday before is not a big deal. I guess they were going to have to go to a hotel and stay for a week, despite the fact that they lived in the town, in the city, which was going to be, I guess, sort of silly, but it's a big opportunity. We're going to talk a lot about it on my podcast a little later today for the one that's going to air on Wednesday. I'm traveling tomorrow, so I'm kind of doubling up today. But whether Tom Brady wins or loses this game, it speaks volumes for Tom Brady, maybe more than anything else that he's ever accomplished. That he goes and takes an average Bucs team. That's what they were, average. They were 7-9. And in year one, they're at this point, 14-7. They won 3 road games in a row in the playoffs, and Washington, New Orleans, Green Bay, and he's got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the Super Bowl at the age of 43 in his first year with the organization. It's to me, it's a remarkable accomplishment.
And they have gotten, watching them and studying them all throughout the year. This is not the same Bucs team. They got progressively better. I mean, they got hammered by the Saints twice, and they just got better and better and better and better. And we've seen that they've just gotten better yet. Now, certainly there were mistakes made by the Saints and the Packers, but that's the key. is the fact that they got better and the fact that Brady is a big factor. Look, this defense has played very good. The defense was the story for the Bucs. I mean, in this past game, the defense stepped up. Brady had picks. Brady didn't play all that well, but he got it there, and they made less mistakes than the Packers, and it was the defense. The defense has stepped up. And, of course, they've got a lot of weapons on offense. But the big difference last year when people were talking and hailing Jameis Winston, I talk about, he threw 30 picks. Oh, but he got 30 interceptions. It doesn't work that way. You can't – it takes 6 explosive plays to make up for one mistake. The mistakes that just cost the Buccaneers is a big reason why. It's the reason why the defense is playing better is because they've got a smarter quarterback that's making less mistakes, that even when he doesn't make big plays, he makes the routine play. He makes the good decisions. He gets them out of a bad play. And so, yeah, even with the picks in the game, and look, I don't know that his performance was the difference in the game. I think it was the defense, but they were able to make just enough plays, and it's a great story. I don't know. I think this is a decidedly better Kansas City team, but are going to be without their outstanding tackle. So it's going to be very difficult when you see Eric Fisher not lining up against that pass rush of the Bucs. It's going to be tough. That makes it interesting, but still think this is a decidedly better Kansas City team. But that's going to be the storyline. It's going to be a lot of fun. Certainly that's going to be the storyline. The old guard and the new young gun.
Yeah, as Chet Rose says in the stream, Devin White, the former LSU linebacker, North Louisiana boy. All North Louisiana boys turn out pretty well, Chris. That's the way.
Yeah, that's what I hear. It's what I hear. It's what you tell me anyway.
Anywhere from Monroe to Shreveport. I mean, they call it the what do they call it? The gold lane, I think is what they call it, and it's true. I mean, pretty much everything along there, Minden, everywhere, it's just paved in gold. Everything turns out remarkably well.
Pretty good. Even when they move, other places, they end up good, is what you're saying. He has been a great player for them. Shaq Barrett is a great player. Lavonte David has been a great player for a long time, but we're starting to see that with other components around him. Yeah. And again, a team that's not turning it over every other time. That's what I always say is, you talk about great teams, it is about talent, and it is about how you're able to put people around it, because it really is kind of like the weakest link. You can take greatness, and greatness will kind of lift the team up, but it can't just completely camouflage a dump of a situation. And I think what we're seeing is this team has just gotten better and better as the season went along. And it's a really good job. I didn't think they were going to be able to do it. I didn't think the rate of progression was going to be as good. But you could see that if there was one conference where there was going to be a surprise, it was going to be out of the NFC, because there was never a dominant team. Saints were good, not dominant. Packers were good, not dominant. Bucs were good, not dominant. Nobody's dominant. The West of the NFC, when all healthy, good teams. Nobody dominant. The East, awful. Just no dominant team. Whereas in the AFC, you could see it's the Chiefs, and it was somebody chasing them. Bills are pretty good, but they're not quite where the Chiefs are right now.
We're going to switch to the college game. I'll just give you a quick observation along the lines of my North Louisiana Brilliance observation. If you notice, there was a trend to one of the things Tampa really benefited from. They benefited from playing a Green Bay team that was worn down by the Bears late in the season, and they benefited by playing a Saints team that was worn down by the Bears the week before. And this is science. And that's the reason Tampa's in the Super Bowl today, is because of the Bears and their dominance, yet failure to quite get to that place. Tampa benefited from it. Congratulations to them.
And we do lean on you for science.
Yeah, I'm Mr. Science.
It is. I
am Mr. Science. All right, so let's talk about the college game. Speaking of the NFL, Nick Saban, former NFL coach, adds Bill O'Brien, former head coach of the Houston Texans, as his offensive coordinator. and then he adds Doug Marrone, former head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars, as his offensive line coach. That's pretty remarkable, man, that you can go and add guys like that. That's
Yeah, it is.
pretty stunning, isn't it?
It is. And you say, well, how does he do that? Well, no, it's not the money. It's because the money actually, they'll be well compensated. But it's actually, when you look at not just some of this staff, but particularly the analysts, they pay less money than most because they're usually getting guys that were let go somewhere else and are getting paid somewhere else. The rate of success of guys that go there and are part of success that get other opportunities or get their first opportunity are higher than anywhere else. So Doug Marrone, Bill O'Brien, with their background as being, people will look at it. You know how this is, Neil. If you want to look at what Bill O'Brien did as a head coach of the Texans, people will talk about how it collapsed. And guy was successful for a long time with the Texans, and certainly as a GM, struggled, was a mess. Really, did a good job. And I can't tell you. People ask me all the time, all right, what's the real difference schematically in college and the NFL? Much more difficult. It's much more of a scheme game. Because in college, you can get away with certain games you're going to be better than certain opponents. And you can be a little bit more simplistic. In the NFL, you got more times with guys so that you can do more things with players, but so can everyone else. And the talent level from the worst team to the best team is very, very small, comparatively speaking, to college. So it relies a lot upon scheme. It's less rosters. And you're talking about a guy that's been really good, did a good job at Penn State. And all that stuff is kind of suppressed a little bit because of the finish at Houston. Doug Marrone, to remind folks, he's in the AFC Championship game against the New England Patriots a couple of years ago. He's had success. Worked for one of the best offensive minds and play callers in football in Sean Payton. Did a nice job in college at a place where, as good as you can do at a place like Syracuse in the modern era, he's done it. Well, but yet there's, negativity. He couldn't do this. He couldn't do that. They will have tremendous success at Alabama, and all of a sudden, at the back end of this, they're going to be like, wow, remember Sark? Oh, man, you're bringing Sark. That's what the Alabama fan. I can't believe you're bringing that guy. Yeah. And look at how gets a Texas job. Well, that's what happens when you're a Bill O'Brien and you're a Doug Marrone. You can go back and
that's my question.
Polish off.
Yeah, so that's my question. What's in it for them? I mean, obviously for Alabama, there's a great benefit here. You bring in guys with NFL work ethic. You bring in guys who can look kids in the eye and say, hey, I've coached in the NFL. I know what it takes to play in the NFL, et cetera, et cetera. I get all that. Bill O'Brien, I'm just kind of playing some devil's advocate here more than anything. Wouldn't he be better off going and being an offensive coordinator for another NFL franchise? Or can he rebuild his resume at Alabama better than he could with, say, the Colts or the Panthers or the Titans or the Seahawks or whatever?
Well, there's some contractual issues go with another team, but a couple of things. Yes, he can go in the NFL, get a coordinator job, and no question do the same thing. In this case, there's a little bit of I don't know if stain is the word, but there's a little bit of, from his standpoint, do I want to go somewhere? Where does he want to go? It's not, hey, just an NFL job. Where does he want to go? So specifically, you can pick any number of teams, and a fan of a certain NFL team. Boy, I wish he'd go so-and-so. You'd help. Yeah, he is going, to answer your question, as is Doug, to see exactly what Saban does and how he does it. There are things that he does that are very NFL-like, and there's also things that he does from building a culture that transcend college or NFL coaching. So the other thing it does, it's a guarantee a guaranteed success, meaning they're going to win. Now, maybe if they stay there 3 years, I'm just throwing a number out.
Okay.
The likelihood is they're going to win at least one title. Probably. I mean, you never know. They may go 0 for 3, but they're going to be really good, and you win one title, then all of a sudden, God forbid, 2, and then you're like, in other words, they're going to come out the reason why they're going there is for polish. They get to learn some things, but more importantly, they're going to be part of something that's really successful, and then they can build upon that. And then we don't know if Doug or Bill are going to get another head coaching opportunities in the NFL. We don't know that. Okay. And being a coordinator in the NFL, if they went that route, may not get them another head coaching opportunity in the NFL. May or may not. But success with Alabama will absolutely open the door for both of them if they want to get a college job, which both of them have background as college coaches. So they can probably write the script of where they want to go in college.
Gotcha.
With maybe the possibility of still moving on to the NFL in the right situation. But the right situation in college or the NFL is what they're looking for, and they're able to do it. And they're able to mitigate some money and do some things and be involved, like because Bill O'Brien is the reason Doug Marrone's there. That's the real connection. Because Bill O'Brien and Doug Marrone coached together at Georgia Tech back in the day. They're really, really good friends, and that's a pair there. That's a pair. Obviously, Nick not the type to say, "Yeah, go and hire whoever you want." This was. I mean, look, Lane Kiffin wanted to hire Sark back in the day. I mean, so this is they're going to have a lot of say-so, a lot of involvement, but they're going to get a lot of polish from working. The other thing that happened since we spoke last, Saban goes out and get Robert Gillespie from North Carolina, one of the elite recruiters in the country, be the running back coach. So that's a great move. Now he's trying to hire Jay Graham over from Tennessee. Another great recruiter, and somebody that I'm guessing he'd probably put in at the special teams position. So this is, in terms of going in, maybe as good a staff as he's had in terms of, okay, what are the accomplishments of the guys before they got in there? And a lot of it is you come in as an assistant and you learn the Alabama way, and you're going to call things and do things the Alabama way. So all of that, you get to answer your question, you get to learn from it, you get polish, and you get your opportunity to go. You can go in a number of different directions. You go in the NFL, you might be a coordinator, as you know, in this league, and you might go 7-9 2 years and get fired, and then you're further down the abyss of, all of a sudden they forget how good a job he did at Penn State, or how good a job he did with the Texans, or how you went to the conference championship game at Jacksonville. You go to Alabama and you win, all of a sudden you watch that narrative. Man, look how good. But they're good. Well, I mean, we know it's not going to be just because of those guys, but they're going to get, man, look at the success. And look at the job that those guys did before they got to Alabama. You know what? This would be a good fit for my school, for my team. It's kind of how it goes.
All right, let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk Tennessee. We talked Tennessee a lot the last couple of weeks. They hired Danny White as the AD. As of this morning, we're taping this at 9:20 Central Time on the 26th. Tennessee has not named a head football coach. I've heard some talk about Tony Elliott. I've heard talk about P.J. Fleck at Minnesota. I've heard some talk about Leopold at Buffalo. Heupel at UCF. Some of the Tennessee media have tried to continue to perpetuate the ridiculous, completely false rumor about Lane Kiffin coming back. That's not happening. We can spend no time there. What are you hearing about what Tennessee is going to do moving forward with the football coach?
Yeah, I don't see any legs to like the PJ Fleck. I think they're doing a couple of things. They're looking at some of the big names. They just want to kind of get a feel for that. There's, I felt like Danny is going to want to put his stamp on it. What does that really mean? Okay, and it doesn't mean that he's going to pluck somebody that's.
Let me interrupt. When you say some of the big names, who are the big names?
Well, I mean, PJ Fleck has got a name. People will probably be, familiar with Neil Brown at West Virginia. People will be familiar with Scott Satterfield at Louisville. I'm trying to think who else that has, because I didn't, there was nothing to him. I'm trying to think who else big name wise they threw out there. Well, people have thrown out Bill O'Brien mainly because Peyton Manning tried to, was pushing him too for that. I'm trying to think now who is, there was somebody else that they threw out there big name wise that, was kind of a pie in the sky. Wasn't much to it. He'll come to me in a second, but not really that important. But those are what I would consider kind of quote unquote the big name. PJ Fleck thing, that's not a good fit anyway. But anyway, so I think Lance Leipold, is somebody that has a connection. I think that Jamie Chadwell is a guy that makes a lot of sense.
Coastal
Carolina. I think of Will Healy, maybe less so, but in that same vein of Charlotte. I think it's going to, for people on the outside, people will look and will always say, well, I like this guy, that guy. The big difference is the best way I can describe it, Neil, is you do the work and study guys as coaches or players. But when you sit down and meet with them, you kind of know. You just kind of, anybody that's been in a hiring process, I don't know if it's in sales or you hire people in your media company, you just kind of, you do your legwork and you don't end up talking to people unless they have some of the qualities. But then when you've got 3 people that you talk with and you got to decide on one, you usually just kind of know it's A and not B or C or what have you. So it's going to come down to something like that. I don't know exactly who it's going to be. But I think it's going to be kind of in that realm of in those type of people. I do think Tony Elliott's in the mix. I think the argument will be that this needs to be somebody that can fix this, meaning can fix the culture. And I think looking at having head coaching experience is really important, not necessarily a deal breaker for him, but something that he would have to convince in an interview, this is how we would have to change the culture. He would have to describe, and people say, well, how do you know? Well, you in these interviews that are detailed, if you do a good job of interviewing, how, Tony, are you going to fix this? And what maybe have you learned from Clemson and other places? But not specifically, not just generically like we're doing here. I'm talking in detailed form, hours of conversation. How would you completely handle A to Z everything? And you get a good feel for who's got the answers and who they're going to bring with them. So I think in that group, it's those are the guys that I think are most in play at this point. I think it's moving pretty fast. I think, Billy Napier's name has been brought up again. And look, I would not rule out the possibility that there's some, I haven't heard it. I have heard it, but haven't heard it strong, but somebody, it wouldn't shock me with his ability to kind of sell it to go to a Luke Fickell and see if he couldn't just turn his head around. If it were me, I would go to a Tom Allen and really see what he's got to say and how, I think things that's Tom Allen and Luke Fickell, the other 2 guys that are very well known because they're on the top of the short. So I don't know who they can get and who they're comfortable with, but it's going to kind of be in that. It's not, as you know, Neil, these coaching searches are not like fans think and a lot of the media think. It's like, well, they can go get this. No, it's when you meet together, it really is like chemistry between 2 people on a date. It may seem good, but Sometimes it's that first impression. Sometimes it leads to a second date. Sometimes you have a comfort level. Sometimes you really don't. And a lot of it is working together and sensing it. And a lot of it is a bad interview and a bad chemistry professionally leads to a hire going one way or the other.
I got to tell you, and Les Penn brings up a point here. He says, what's the minimum years that Tennessee is hiring this coach for, knowing that 1 to 2 will be hit hard by the NCAA? Listen, I've talked to some people around, and there's a reluctance about this job. There's a, man, I got to, before I even think about taking that job, before I even think about letting my client take that job, I've got to dive in deep and look at what the charges are. Is there a defense? What's the plan on a defense? What are the odds that the NCAA goes light on Tennessee? And the answer is slim. The SEC has issues all over the place. You've got the deal at LSU right now with the sexual, I guess, misconduct, for lack of a better word, that appears to be boiling over. That internal investigation's coming. The NCAA is going to have maybe no choice but to hit LSU hard. You've got Tennessee. You've got all this stuff that's going on, and these coaches are looking at this going, now, wait a minute. Before I leave Cincinnati or leave Coastal Carolina a year early, before I leave Louisiana Lafayette, as crazy as that sounds, before I make a jump like that, what am I going to be dealing with? And in the event that it's as bad as some people say it might be, because, Chris, if it's 50 level 1 violations, I don't care if you throw yourself on the sword and beg for mercy. The NCAA has no choice but to hammer you. And so if it's going to be that type of hammering in a division, I mean, to sort of dovetail with what we talked about a minute ago, in a league where you're going to go up against a coaching staff at Alabama that's got Nick Saban and Bill O'Brien and Doug Marrone and Robert Gillespie and all these people. You got Florida in your division. You got Georgia in your division. You've got Auburn in your same league. You've got Texas A&M and Jimbo Fisher in your same league. You've got Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss, a program that appears to be moving forward. You've got Kentucky stable. They're not a great program, but they're stable. You've got a lot going on, and you got to get some guarantees as to what you're going to be able to have and deal with, and how much patience they're going to have with you. And listen, I don't get the warm fuzzies from talking to people and coaching, and I don't think you do either, but I don't get the warm fuzzies at all about what people view as what's realistic and what's not at Tennessee right now.
Well, all true, but that is, if I'm playing in the role of Danny White, or I'm trying to assist in that, there's nothing you can do about that. So let me tell you what you can do about it to make the job a lot better. And I was going to get ready, and I know I was kind of detailed and long-winded as I usually am, but to the point of what you do, and the length is, I'm going to piggyback off of what I said in our last show, which Les, we appreciate Les joining us, and maybe didn't hear it, is here's how I would handle it. The contract, to me, to answer your question, would be 7 years. Now, there are different ways you can do that. You can make it 5 years and it's guaranteed, but then you add years based upon, so you go in with the idea of certain expectations of NCAA sanctions. If they're above and beyond that, which you have to allow for that because you don't know what the NCAA is going to hit you with down the road, then I think you need to be able to be in a position to add a year or two to it. So that, meaning if you get hit, it's worse than you thought, then you get security. So here's what you get if you're going to Tennessee. No, you're 100% right. You're getting a program that's in really bad shape. You get a program that's looking for a savior. You get a program that, quite frankly, they don't have expectations. They are down in the dump. They think that right now they're looking up at Vanderbilt. They think the worst of themselves. You're getting a low expectation job. You are going to get a lot of money because you're not taking it. You're going to get a lot of guaranteed money, and you're going to get something that very few people get today in coaching is you're going to get a lot of time. Or if they dumb enough to not give you the time, they're going to pay you generationally wealth money to where you can do anything you want to do. So you can't make the job the you can't make the NCAA problems go away. You can't make the history go away, recent history. What you can is you're going to have to throw money at it, and you're going to have to throw years at it. And that's how you make it really good. And there are other things that are really good. It has to be somebody that you gotta you get a little misty-eyed when you go up on the hills and you see Tennessee and Rocky. That has to kind of, that I'd like to live there, because you may be living there a long time, and it may be a place you might want to live even after, depending on where your career goes. My point is that's what you have to do. That's what you have to do. You have to make it good with money and longevity. And look, if they don't, and they try to just hit it with, it's going to get further and further and further into the abyss. They're going to have to throw them in it. My God, Neil and everyone, what is one thing? Who is paying more money to more people than Tennessee that don't work there anymore? So,
yeah,
throw money at making it really good. And how much money and how much guarantee depends upon who it is. The better the guy, the more he's going to want. Now, that doesn't mean that that's going to make Luke Fickell want to come. I don't know what Luke wants to do. I mean, we know Luke's dream job he had briefly at Ohio State. Would he maybe get it again if Ryan Day left to go into the NFL? I don't know that. I think Matt Campbell might be the favorite. And that Matt Campbell's dream job. Ohio State's saying, so does Luke go to Michigan? I mean, where's it? I mean, if you don't want to go to Michigan or Notre Dame and you're going to be in the Midwest, you're not going to any place. You're going to have to. So I don't know what he wants and when's the right time for him or anyone else for that matter.
Notre Dame's the job that I've heard Fickell would love to have, but Brian Kelly has positioned himself now to stay at Notre Dame for a long time. So, so I guess if you're Fickell and you're looking at a Tennessee job, if you're being honest about it, you have your people put in a clause. You try to bury it privately, but you have people put in a clause that if the Notre Dame job opens and you want to pursue it, you can, and that reduces the buyout to go there. I mean, and that might be a deal breaker for a Danny White. I don't know. At this point, we're totally just speculating, but I don't know. Fickell, I can't imagine Fickell staying at Cincinnati long term. I think at some point he moves on to a bigger job with more money and more facilities and more investment, but the job that I've heard that he wants is Notre Dame, and it doesn't appear to be coming open.
Well, and the thing about that too is when they go and uncover the difficulties of Notre Dame, you got to realize that you're doing it differently. You're not recruiting the same players, same type of players. I mean, you can recruit some of them, but there are limitations there, and you got to be it was Urban Meyer's dream job too, until he realized, I can win better at Florida. And Urban was not a Southern guy.
Yeah.
Okay. So my point is sometimes that stuff changes. Now, I'm not saying that Tennessee's Luke Fickell's job, but I would think that Luke Fickell might go out of the footprint a little bit more. And even Matt Campbell. Matt Campbell has got NFL people knocking on his door left and right. Most of us in the NFL think he's the next Matt Rule. It's just about he wants to get the right situation. And you remember Matt Rule turned down the Jets, and he couldn't bring his staff and do things the way he wants. I think Matt's looking at that too. So don't be surprised if a guy like Luke or Matt may end up there at some point if they can't get the right college job. There are not many elite college jobs, and quite frankly, most of them are in the SEC. And, it depends upon kind of what you consider elite as well, because money is good. But where do you want to live and what's your goal and what your dream is? Rock Westfall mentions here that the Iowa State Iowa State is not where Matt Campbell's planning on spending the rest of his coaching career. It's just that it pays enough money in an environment that he's built that he ain't going to leave it just to get something that's a little bit better. He's going to leave it to get something great. He's going to leave it to get the right NFL job or to get the Ohio State job. I don't know that there's another job that he would want. But what if Penn State comes open? Luke Fickell, Matt Campbell. Now that to me is a plum job that I think we all had from Matt Rule, before he went into the NFL. But who knows timing and all that. Point is there, you never know. Timing's everything.
Take a break real quick to tell you that this podcast is brought to you by Blue Sky. Blue Sky, push that over there. Blue Sky is believes in being fast, fresh, and friendly. Through the thoughtful layout and cleanliness of their stores, Blue Sky hopes to provide customers with a fast and easy buying experience. From services to products, Blue Sky plans to keep things fresh and always provide the freshest flavors of their brand name products and the best services available. They can even bring in some of the newest products on the market to their stores to provide an even better customer experience. A smile can say it all, and at Blue Sky, they want to show their customers they care about them and their shopping experience. They'll always strive to improve their efforts to accomplish exactly that. So check out Blue Sky today at any one of their 48 store locations across the Southeast. And we are brought to you by our friends at Alpha Specialties. Alpha Specialties, located at 1670 Highway 80 in Pearl, Mississippi, is your trailer-specific professional. If you want to haul it, they can call it. Alpha is the premium trailer dealership in Mississippi. They've got Load Trail, the premium brand trailer, the highest quality utility equipment dump and gooseneck trailer being built today. Fully primed and powder coated, Load Trail trailers come with an industry-leading 3-year warranty and 2 years of roadside assistance. Alpha Specialties also has Hallmark cargo trailers, one of the most quality cargo trailers on the market today, perfect for hauling goods to markets and shows, ATVs to deer camp, hauling race cars, and more. Alpha can even work with third parties to have game day trailers and concession trailers built for you. For podcast listeners, Alpha has spare tires and wheels starting at just $100, a full selection of trailer parts and accessories, hitches, winches, straps, and more. They also do all types of truck accessories. Listeners can get 10% off a yearly trailer service and inspection at Alpha's full service shop. They can repair all types of trailers, concession, horse, utility, enclosed, gooseneck, RV, and more. So give them a call at 601-932-9798 or check them out at alphaofms.com. Make sure you tell them that you heard about Alpha on the MPW Digital Network of podcasts. All right, there's some news at some other places as well. Ole Miss had 3 vacancies. They're down to 1. They I guess they made it official yesterday, but it broke on Friday. A story that I got absolutely mauled on. I had never mentioned the guy's name, just got killed. I joked, people always they'll come back and say so-and-so was first to report. I tweeted that I was last to report. Well, Ole Miss hired John David Baker from USC. He was the tight ends coach at USC with Graham Harrell as offensive coordinator. He came to Ole Miss. He got a little title enhancement, the tight ends coach / passing game coordinator. So he got that. He gets some SEC experience. Considered kind of one of the hot names in college coaching. Young guy there at USC. He's been out there for a few years. Was with Graham Harrell at North Texas before that. What do you know about Baker? What do you think about that hire?
Really good understanding, kind of working in that blocking scheme. He's got a lot of experience in that style. So, and obviously, Lane knew him pretty well. There was a number of people whose names came up for that, and it was, for me, hard to figure out kind of where that was going anyway. Makes sense when you look at it, though. Sometimes when it's done, I'm like, well, I'm not quite sure of that, and I got to do a little work. How did that come to be? And it's always usually a good little story. But this one kind of made some sense in the after effect. I'm with you. So good moves there. South Carolina with congratulations to Joe Bowen, who I've known for years, accepted the role on the defensive side of the ball. Is going to be working with the linebackers on Shane Beamer's staff at South Carolina. They also hired Taylor Edwards, a really good recruiting organizer from Maryland staff, get him away from Mike Loxley. And also, I know you probably know Cody Kennedy. He's the offensive line coach at Southern Miss, the run game coordinator. He's going to be the new tight end coach at Arkansas, I'm told. That may be announced sometime today. So those are some of the latest news that as a lot of staffs are getting filled up.
What happened with that move at Arkansas? There was a lot of speculation that he was his name is escaping me, the coach that was let go at Arkansas. There was speculation that he was going to end up at Ole Miss or something. I spent some of Friday chasing that. I didn't get anywhere. I think he was let go at Arkansas. What happened?
Yeah, I don't know. I think they wanted to move in the different direction, and I think they kept it quiet. I don't think there's anything sinister there. They just wanted to make a move. Now, for people who don't know, to tie it in, Cody worked. I think Cody and there were a couple of other people, but Cody in particular was somebody that Sam liked because he worked with at Georgia. He was, somebody they want. I think it was more of kind of, obviously head coaches, they really focus on their area that they really like. He really wanted this guy to really help teach a lot of the philosophies that Sam likes in the run game, protections and in the run game. And those are things that as head coaches, you don't have as much time. You can spend sometimes in meetings. So you want your right hand guys that kind of can finish your sentence, so to speak. And so I think it was more about trying to replace him with a guy that he really, really wanted. So those are some of the LSU.
Yeah, before you go to LSU, let me go back to Ole Miss for a minute. They've got a defensive line opening. There's been a lot of talk about Marquise Watson, who was a staffer, getting promoted. That hasn't happened yet, though I continue to hear that's a possibility. There's been talk about Jimmy Brumbaugh, who was most recently on the Tennessee staff until midway through the season. There's some talk about Randall Joyner, who's another hot young coach. Is a defensive line coach at SMU right now. There's a report that I cannot independently confirm that he is interviewing with Ole Miss today. What do you hear anything about that particular job?
Yeah, those guys. There've been a few others that I have to look at. Though I think all those guys are really good. Brumbaugh obviously has a lot of experience, recent experience. I don't know that's where the lean is, but certainly the guy that is the most experienced in terms of recruiting in the league, working in the league. And I don't, but the fact that he was let go during the middle of a game, technically, is not necessarily considered something that was. I mean, it's two sides to the story, but those are one of the many issues that Jeremy Pruitt had. So I don't know that he's the favorite. I think he's, again, a little bit of the more polished guy of the group. But as I said, now the one thing coming from SMU, you've got a guy that's really what you want on the defensive line is guys that can really chase, play hard, get upfield, because the big thing is you've got to be able to recruit those guys, and those guys need to be able to run like deers, because with your defense has to complement the offense, and the ability to score a lot of points and play with some leads and get off the field. That's what they need. Guys that can wreak havoc. They're not going to play a lot of bend and break and, play some soft coverage at times, but for the most part, they're going to want to get after it. So having guys that can really get after it, that really good at disengaging, teaching good technique in terms of swing moves, pass rush moves. Those are all things that I think all these guys are pretty accomplished in.
All right, you were going to talk about LSU. I've read some stuff here recently. It does not sound like it's going well. I continue to hear about different LSU players getting into the transfer portal or potentially getting into the transfer portal. That internal investigation is supposed to be wrapping up here in the next, 30 to 60 days probably is a safe time frame, maybe less than that. What's the buzz in Baton Rouge?
Well, the main thing they've been asking about, everyone's been asking about, is the defensive coordinator. And I do believe, and I'm going to knock on wood, but the others were when people were reporting a lot of Marcus Freeman and a lot of Ryan Nielsen, I kind of knew there was a little bit of a pump the brakes. I don't think there's anything that's going to stand in the way of them finishing off the deal. In fact, behind the scenes, I think they've got a deal done with Durante Jones with the Vikings. He's the secondary coach there. Ed knows him. He's a young guy that has been coaching for a while. He's from Louisiana. He's coached in the high schools in Louisiana, in Jeanerette and Franklin. Doesn't come from, what'd you call it? The Golden Road?
Yes.
Not there, but maybe touch with some other areas in South Louisiana that sometimes the wind blows south to where you catch some of those gold flakes that Neil's talking about. Seriously, this guy's a young coach at Nichols back in the early 2000s, 2002, 2003. Spent some time in the NFL. Good young coach. Somebody Ed knows and is comfortable with. Just not had the real experience really being a defense coordinator except in high school. So, um, let's just call it what it is. Not anywhere near their first, second, third choice type, but a good young coach that he had targeted and kind of was on the list. But all you need to know about it is they could have had him 2-3 weeks ago. We all know why and who they were chasing, and it doesn't mean it won't work out. But one of the things I'll say again from the coaching profession side of it, and everybody always likes to evaluate how good a job this is and what they think. Well, you're not coaching, so it only matters what the candidates are. If I think this is a really good sales job, but I'm not a salesman, well, how the hell do I know whether it's good or not? Only salesmen that are in that business truly know whether they think it's good or not. So the coaching profession right now, the LSU job is still a good one, is that it pays a lot of money. And I'm talking position coaches and different jobs within the school, of course. But in this case, it is not a job that people with a lot of experience, a lot of credentials that are as comfortable with because of the circumstances of not just, well, Ed better win this year or else, which, I mean, it's going to be a pivotal year this year. But more than that is, you don't know what's going to happen if it doesn't work. Me as a coordinator going to get fired in 1 year because that's what's happened to 3 guys in recent history. So you wonder a little bit, it's kind of a lot of, if it doesn't work, I'm going to be the scapegoat. That's the feeling in the coaching profession. So that's why that's one of the reasons why they've had to go down on their list. People will say, oh, no, Marcus Freeman really wanted to come, and Ryan Nielsen really wanted to come. If they wanted to come, they'd be there. Okay, there are other circumstances.
Sure.
and now, if those guys didn't have other options, if Notre Dame and the same, if they, then they'd probably be at LSU because it's still a really good job. This is a guy that was not getting any offers at the college level and not in the NFL level either. Doesn't mean he won't be good. We'll see. Time will tell. Young guy, little inexperienced, will have to grow into it, and what's going to be a pivotal year for LSU. So.
What are you hearing on the other, though, about the
honestly, nothing. I mean, it's other than the investigations going on. I mean, I don't know that you're going to hear a whole lot until we hear everything, if that makes any sense. I think, I think it stems around, obviously, who knew. There's going to be some people that are going to take the fall for it. Now, who it is in the athletic administration, there's somebody that I know really, really well that may end up, taking the fall. He may legitimately be taking. He may have done something that would require that he gets hit hard. But there's a few people there. I think obviously it's what did you know, when did you know it, and how this is going to play out. I don't know, as we all know in these situations, how clean are the hands of the head coach and how you're able to. I don't know how that's going to play out. But right now, that's not been a good situation at all at LSU because awful. I mean, you go from the mountaintop and you win a title, which, football's the king, and now you have a disastrous season. You have this blow up. You have some NCAA investigations that doesn't involve what we're talking about now. So you got 2 big things. You got, a head coach that's struggling, and maybe I think all of that too factors in, to the future of Ed, of on the field, off the field. All those things factor into where there's a lot of, and I tell you, a guy that was considered the golden boy coming home. I had a friend of mine. Well, my best friend is very high up in the university. Came by the other day and spent a couple hours right in this very office, and there's a lot of disappointment in Scott Woodard, and it's hard to put my finger on it because I'm not working there every day, but exactly what has he done to really help? I mean, now all this stuff had taken place before Scott was there, but how he's handled some of this hasn't been really good. And in wondering, well, is his hands tied to some degree? Does he not want to step out? Because on top of all of that, we hadn't even talked about the fact that Will Wade is still coaching basketball there.
I know.
And that's not, and it's less of an issue because it's like, if they, the way it works at LSU, Will Wade gets fired tomorrow, but they they get a recruiting commitment. It's like, the basketball coach on the second page. So it's just not, but it's still one of those things. That team,
it's a head scratching deal.
It is, and that he ain't doing a great job coaching that basketball team. I was watching a little bit the other day. Boy, on offense, they don't move around at all. They don't play a lick of defense, and so I don't know what's going to. Scott Woodard, for all the honeymoon is over for Scott Woodard. He's going to have to make some tough decisions going forward to keep people, get rid of people. Some of it, though, is going to be made above him. It won't come down on him, I don't think, because there's nothing that he really knew when this happened. But there's some things that people that he's really tied to that he's going to have to really close to, that he's going to have to make some decisions on, because some of those people were people he were close to when he was at LSU prior. So
Drake Davis thing could come down on several people. There were people that knew about that, did nothing about it, which, depending on how hard you want to go on the parlance, could mean that they covered it up.
Well, okay, so real quick on that. Drake Davis texted Deputy Athletic Director Verge Osbury, a former player when I was there at LSU, that he had hit his girlfriend. And as the story goes, he called back and said he retracted his words, that he didn't. And the rest of it is not quite known. And no one knows. People say, well, he didn't. I don't. No one knows. That he said, you need to call the police. Okay. Did he call the police? What did Verge report? What did he not report? Was there a lapse of time? Miriam Seeger became aware of it because the girl was an athlete as well on campus. So it's like, did you take the proper procedures to report it in the proper time frame? And everyone thinks, Neil, I know. How the hell would I know, what somebody did or didn't do? I just know that's what the investigation is. And this is not an NCAA investigation, folks. This is a federal investigation. This is criminal investigation. I would think they're going to find out the truth and forget about NCAA for a second, as that could be very, very dangerous. And some people's career is probably at stake. And I'm not really comfortable saying, oh, yeah, I know it, because I don't know. If 5 people told me today what happened, I still don't know if that's the case because I didn't see it. It's not like, vetting a coaching search. So this is ugly. This is going to get uglier, and we're going to have to find out where things are going to go,
Were you surprised that Brian Harsin at Auburn did not keep Travaris?
Yeah, a little bit. Although, he kept some people, but I don't know. Has he kept enough people in the footprint recruiting-wise? That's going to be the key. I knew he was bringing people in with him in key spots coaching-wise, but have they done enough in recruiting? We shall see. That is going to be key. T-Rob, Cadillac, at least, so we'll see. Real interesting.
I tell you, T-Rob's a guy that I think has a chance, depending on – he's got to take the right career path, and I think in many ways this might ultimately benefit him a little bit to – not that – don't get me wrong, not that having Auburn on your resume is a bad thing. It's not. Having Auburn on your resume is a very good thing. But sometimes when you're a former player, if you spend too much of your early coaching career at your alma mater, you get pigeonholed, fairly or unfairly. And I think T-Rob has the personality and the charisma to one day be a head coach. And so getting outside of the SEC, getting away from Auburn for a little while, you can always go back. You can always go back home. Sometimes it's best to get away from home. It's why, people scratch their heads a little bit at the John David Baker move from USC to Ole Miss. he wants to be a head coach one day. And so sometimes adding some different things to your resume and showing that you can work in different geographical areas of the country and for different kinds of people is the way that you get that done. And T-Rob's still a young guy.
You learn different things. That's the key for any young coach. We just talked about it near the beginning of the show. Why would Doug Marrone and Bill O'Brien do it? We talked about polish, but they are going to learn some things that add to their repertoire, and they've been around forever.
Let me correct myself. I keep saying Robinson. I'm referring to Williams. I apologize.
Yeah. The best teachers are the best students. I mean, no one studies what other people do more than the Bill Belichick's and the Nick Sabans of the world. They're students of the game. They're the best teachers. I mean, that's so absolutely. So, and I always tell this young guys all the time, they want to do this. I don't want to, let me tell you something, young man, get your coat. If you're from the South, get your coat, go wherever you need to go in the cold weather. You go wherever you need to learn. Young guys need to be experienced, get exposure. If you're learning one thing, you have a very myopic view of how to do it. And I'm not just talking about the X's and O's, but how do you deal with a lot of situations? That's why I encourage people in the interview process to interview as many places as possible. And I encourage schools or teams to interview as many people, because you get ideas from people that want your job, or you get ideas from people that are interested, and then you can take that to help grow your career or take that to help your program. That's why when people say, why would they interview this guy? They have no interest in really maybe hiring the guy, but they can learn a lot. And, of course, I've said a couple of stories last week that I can give you a whole hour's worth of shows of guys that were interviewing just as a courtesy interview that ended up getting the job, that had 0% chance of getting it, just absolutely killed the interview and won the job. Kill it in a kind of a good kill it kind of way.
It's funny. It's not just coaching that's that way. I get young aspiring journalists will DM me or text me or whatever. And they're like, do you have any thoughts? Do you have any advice? And it's always, yeah, I got thoughts and advice. But they all want to do the same thing. They're all like, okay, well, what I want to do is I want to start out covering football and I want to cover an SEC school. And I'm like, well, probably isn't going to work that way if you don't have the right connections. So what you need to do is, if you don't have the Missouri degree or the Northwestern degree or the Syracuse degree or the Arizona State degree, those are all big-time journalism programs for people.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not going to go to one of those places, well, you've got to be willing to go cover anything. You got to be willing to go anywhere. Take a job in Montana covering outdoor stuff. Cover news. Cover hard stuff, cover police, cover courts. And then one day, you can always, like I said, you can always come home if home is covering the SEC and you want to cover football. But it's amazing how many people in different fields they get into that deal about locked down to a geographic area. And man, you're just limiting yourself at that point.
Mm-hmm.
If I could go back and talk to 24-year-old me, and it would be, Get this thing, and my wife will admit this, it was mostly her. Get this thing out of your head about you got to stay in the South. Now you can always come back to the South. You can leave the South. Like you said, you can get a coat. It'll be all right.
Yeah, you got to do it. You got to do it. No.
Right, well,
hey, I know we're a couple of things as we head out the door. One, it is I remember this day vividly because it's actually my dad's birthday. Dad passed away in 2004, but January 26, 1983 is when we lost Bear Bryant. Bear Bryant died, just just a few weeks after his last game. So it is 38 years ago that Bear Bryant passed away. As we kind of head towards Alabama and this run that Nick Saban's on, who could have thought that they would have someone that would surpass Bear Bryant in terms of I mean, it's just unbelievable that one school has had that. Just a reminder, it was January 26th, and I remember 26 being my dad's birthday. So
I was at I guess I was in a seventh grade, maybe a seventh grade basketball practice at Glenview Junior High. Yeah, I grew up an Alabama fan. I don't know if you know that. Both of my parents have degrees from Alabama. And I grew up cheering for Alabama pretty hard, actually, as a diehard fan when I was a 13-year-old boy. And I got in the car, and my dad told me that Bear Bryant had passed away, and I remember it being kind of devastating, honestly.
It was, yeah, it was. Made national news. Of course, back then wasn't the news cycle. You didn't have. I guess you had some talk radio, but it wasn't like the 24. You certainly had no social media, and I remember hearing it. My dad told me too, because my dad was a traveling hardware salesman, and he'd heard it on the news. Think WWL radio, and had the whole Hapglotty, the news updates, sports updates, and that's what we find out. And it was on the national news. It was on, the Walter Cronkites of the world was doing it. Hey, I know, folks, Neil is got some duties that's going to take him out on Friday. Correct, Neil?
Yep, I'm going to be out of town on Friday, and I don't know I'm going to be any place where I would have the kind of internet connection that I need to do this.
I will, folks, hate to be a little vague, but I am pretty sure I'm going to be here Friday. I've got Senior Bowl duties, abbreviated version. Got actually one combine meeting, of which we don't have a normal combine, but so I'm going to be there for a little bit. Should be back in time. And so my plan is in this slot that I will be doing it solo. We'll be talking about Senior Bowl. We're talking about some recruiting, some other stuff, and anything else you want me to talk about. If for some reason it can, I'll put it out on social media and we'll resume on Tuesday. But pretty sure I'm going to be able to get that done. Hate to be completely, not 100% certain, but that's the plan. So we'll be talking. And I know going forward, we're going to talk a lot about draft and recruiting and evaluating personnel, and I think it's fun too. I get this a lot of stories to tell about the history of college football and in this conference and in the nation. It's going to be fun. People say, what are you going to talk about now? Yeah, we've got basketball. No, we're not going to give up on that, but certainly want to cover. There's football all year round. The news and notes. Remind you check out to check out LandryFootball.com for our notebooks, all the latest information, coaching searches, transfer portal, tons of stuff. I know Neil's got tons of stuff on the SEC and of course Ole Miss at Rebel Walk. So you want to make sure you're checking out all of that and checking us both out on social media.
Yeah, Rebel Grove, but rebelgrove.com, part of the Rivals Network. You can get the latest on Ole Miss stuff there. Ole Miss and Arkansas basketball tomorrow. We'll talk basketball. We'll start catching you up on some basketball as we get along. Next Tuesday will be the day before signing day. We'll touch on some targets for around the SEC. We'll start previewing the Super Bowl, and we'll catch you up on all the latest around the SEC. As you can see, it never really stops. Even though football does, the news doesn't. So Chris will be back with you probably on Friday. I will be back with you, good Lord willing, on Tuesday. So until Friday, for Chris Landry, I'm Neil McCready. That does it for this edition of SEC Football and Beyond. Stay safe out there. Take care. Bye.